speaking a little bit more now about the difference between law and poetry, I want to delve into that a little bit more. First off, big question. What does law mean to you? What is the idea of law mean to you?
He didn't prepare me for this, by the way. Sort of just throwing this on me. I think law as a system is a way for us to outline and uphold rights and responsibilities of individuals and groups of individuals. That's what it means to me. That's my definition.
A very good definition.
Thank you.
I agree. I think the reason why, because I like to start with that before we delve into like comparisons, so then we know where we're both standing from, right?
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, that's a really good definition. I think you're right. Law is a system for us to kind of like, I think law is arguably the greatest idea for society we've ever had. You know, again, I'm making a lot of generalizations in this episode.
A lot of assertions.
There's a lot of assertions.
Shakespeare's the greatest. Law's the greatest.
Challenging. What are you going to do? Like, I'm right. Like, I believe I'm right. I think, no, the reason why law is such a fascinating idea, because I think it's what makes us human. It takes us from being animals who are like allowed to just do whatever based on their own desires to now kind of like, no, we're actually going to aspire for things more. And I think that's the basis on which you can build a society and you can like, you know, grow it. So I think the theory of law, like the understanding of law has always fascinated me, you know. So I think it's like, it's interesting, and I want to speak to you about this too. Interesting to see the relationship between how a person, because I would say someone who's law and into law is structured, you know, very much like, okay, based on truth or based on like ideas that have come before, follow to the letter of the law. We have that phrase, you know, that creates a certain kind of person is interested in that. Yeah. Do you agree with that? What kind of person do you think is interested in law?
Best kind of people.
Of course. Of course.
I think you have to be sort of organized and structured, like you said, in how you approach things. So like, if there's a problem, deconstructing different elements, understanding the relationship between the elements and then structuring it like that. I would say organization is a big thing, and attention to detail, which is quite similar to poetry. But I think that law, you have to be, the devil is in the details, whether it be language or concepts or finding loopholes, lots of details. So attention to detail was like a really fun thing.
What was your favorite thing to learn about law? Like, what was something that you really enjoyed when you were learning? Was it like the case studies? Was it like, yeah, like, because for me, right, the reason from the outside, what I think is fascinating about law is just like, I don't know if you've seen Suits, right? So to me, it's like what Suits is like, you know, when it's like, you know, Harvey just walking in with a suit, just like looking cool, dapper.
Who we want to be.
Everyone wants to be Harvey Specter. But yeah, that's like the perception of what law is. And so I think a lot of people, when they see law, they go, I want to do that. I want to make Your Honor, like, this is the wrong thing they said. And then, you know, like, win the case there. But I don't know how realistic that is. So that's why I'm asking you, as someone who's going to study it, what is something that you enjoy about law? And also, like, how realistic is what we see, the depiction of law in places like Suits, with like what it really is like?
Suits, however amazing as a show it is probably not the most realistic. I think there's a lot more behind the scenes in terms of the work that you're putting in and the hours that you're putting in. So commendably, it's lots of hard work. There's lots of reading in law, which Harvey Specter doesn't seem to do. You know, you can kind of just pick up a case file and then read 2 lines and be like, Mike, this is what you need to do.
Give it to Mike. Mike can just memorize everything in one
Exactly. But it's a lot of reading, which is tons of fun. And I think that, yeah, it's probably not that realistic, but it's great entertainment value. What was your second question?
What was your favorite part about law? Like, what was the thing that really like spoke to you, or like what do you think meshes well with your character or personality?
Okay, so there are two key parts. I think one part that's quite interesting to me is legal argumentation. So the reasoning and the steps you take to formulate an argument, I think to me that's quite fun. It's sort of how I would write, like my equivalent of writing a poem. Do you know what I mean? Putting together different arguments, deciding what's stronger, what goes first. I think that's quite interesting to me. And then in terms of academically, law as a system, and how things are structured. That's my fun. I'm a really fun person.
Let's break it down.
Okay.
You are a very fun person. Let's break it down. Okay, so you mentioned it's kind of your way of doing poetry, and I kind of want to like, so I'm a poet, obviously, and you're someone who studied law. I want to talk about the differences or similarities between that. So when you say you're breaking down two kind of like arguments and looking at it from both sides, is that like, what goes into that? Is that like a lot of research and then like understanding what the opposition is going to say versus like what you want to say? Is that like reading about like a law that was made in like 1918 something and then using that as your basis for like, oh, they're not going to know this, I'm going to use this. What do you think, what do you think is similar or different in the process of putting like, I guess, a case together or putting together a poem?
Okay. I probably can't speak from the side of poetry, but you could probably, correct me if I'm wrong. I think preparation is key. Preparation is quite a big thing for me. Sometimes you might have to read a case from way back when, but anticipating what the other side is going to say is key. That comes into your preparation and how you're organizing your materials. So I do think that preparation is key.
You know what's interesting too, because I think like there is no preparation in poetry.
Really, you
like,
just
kind of
what comes to mind.
Literally, I think the only preparation is like what you've been feeling.
Okay.
So like I have to have a very good relationship with my feelings. I have to be very self-aware. I have to be almost like in a
like Socrates.
Like but even like and like it has to be completely self-aware of your faults and your things. So you have no control over it. I've gone to a stage in my poetry where I don't like what I write. I have no control over. As in, like ideas come to me and I write, and I'm like the very best poets can get rid of people's perception of them while they write. So they're not thinking about, oh, what are you gonna think when I say this thing? It's like what is the poem asking me to say? What truth do I have to reveal? So I think it is very interesting. I think the personal relationship poets have with their work versus the external relationship that lawyers will have with what they do. It's very much impersonal. It's got nothing to do with me. Maybe it does, and just like how much work you put in, your ethic, But like, as a poet, it all comes from within. Even if you're talking about an external thing, it's like how that external thing made you feel.
Very introspective.
Yeah. Do you think there's a place for that in law, or do you think it has to be just hard, cold facts?
I think there is a place for it, and how you construct arguments, how you frame. We were talking about the question one of the questions I didn't like, but how you phrase two sides. Do you know what I mean? I don't remember the question, but I made a comment that it's not necessarily two opposites, but you've framed it as such. And I think law, you get to have lots of fun with that, and how you frame a narrative and how you put together the facts and or how you display the facts. So I think you do get to have a bit of fun
with the creative side of it.
It's very really creative. Cool. But there are also procedures that you do have to follow. But it's probably not as introspective.
Yeah.
Still lots of fun.
But also you're working with audiences, right? Like same thing. Like if you're delivering a poem to an audience, maybe they're not going to clap in a court of law, click their fingers. But it is the same thing. You're working with an audience, so it's like, how do you get your ideas across to an audience?
Absolutely.
And it's like, if your client depends on you being able to like deliver what you've prepared for, very much to that audience. How much of a role do you think that is, like performing and presenting yourself is in law in a courtroom? How much? Because I know it's very important in poetry, where it's like, even if you have the best poem, performing it will show you how really good the poem is. Is that kind of similar, do you think, in law?
That is similar, but I think it comes more from like how you prepare. So how you want to frame the case. I think that's more about the performing side of it. But I think there is a space for performing in a courtroom. I haven't necessarily seen anything dramatic as poetry just yet in a courtroom, but Maybe one day.
Maybe one day you can start that. You can start that kind of.
You're on. Here is my monologue.
You start like going into a Hamlet monologue and a soliloquy in the middle of it.
To be or not to be?
To be or not to be?
Is the question.
Indeed. I think, yeah, you mentioned before how important language is, like precise language. I think that's something similar.
Yeah.
Talking about differences, I think there's something similar in poetry and law. It's like every word I use is thought over 100 times. Like even like of or the, like I have to think about the rhythm. Does that fit? Or like do I have to add a sentence? So I have to read these things to myself 1,000 times over and over and over and over and over again, just so I can like, okay, does this make sense? This is what I'm trying to say. I think that's a very important thing for me. It's like if I write a poem, I'm like literally, I was talking about this about my process.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm stepping on stones in a river, right? And like a word, it's like, okay, this word kind of works, so this word doesn't work. Or like this word is not what I'm trying to say, but it works rhythmically. How do I cut it? So like, I literally need to use just the right word in just the right way, in just the right sequence. Otherwise it doesn't work. Otherwise I have to restart the poem again and like, okay, no, it doesn't make sense to me. How similar is the process like for you? How important is like using the specific word in a court of law?
Specific language is very important. I'll give you an example. There was a traffic law case of all cases, where the defendant was contesting what the law said because they had, okay, so the most disputable part of the case was the phrase flashing lights. So what does flashing lights mean to you?
Lights that flash. Like, I guess, blinkers.
So there were two different interpretations. One of the interpretations was lights that have the capacity to flash. So you can have flashing lights and it can also not be flashing. So the whole idea was that, you know, in the statute it said you cannot have flashing lights. So that was one interpretation. And then the other interpretation was the actual act of the lights flashing. So whether or not it's off, if it's off, that's completely fine. But if it's flashing, then it's illegal. So there was a, you know, it was quite fun.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Seeing the difference between these two things and how it actually made a difference. Because they related it to police cars. And if you have flashing lights and, you know, if someone sees flashing lights, they might mistake you for police and what kind of implication that can have for traffic. So that's just a example of how language is really important in law, and so I think that's quite similar to poetry in that regard.
Absolutely. I think even more important because we're talking about like, you know, obviously like you go to jail if you misinterpret something like that, you know. I think it's so cool to see something where language is taken like very seriously. Yeah, I think that's definitely something they're supposed to have in common. Where the law is this language, right? It's just language that we've kind of like cemented to be truth. And we go like, no, this is true. And I think, like even when you're like testifying, right? You put your hand on the Bible. It's like what you're saying has to be true, you know, because like what you say in this place will decide someone's life. So it's like that kind of, what do you think about it? What do you think about how both law and poetry, you can speak from a law perspective, how they make language important and the difference? Because I feel like these days, skibbity and whatever, language isn't that important. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't matter what you say, it matters, I guess, what you mean. But like, if law is like very important, what you say and what you mean. What do you think about that?
Well, again, I don't think what you mean and what you say are two separate things. I think the language that you use is used to depict what you mean. Do you know what I mean? And I think law is important in that regard, how it tries to make it as accurate as it tries to capture as accurately as possible what you mean. And vagueness just kind of means we can't figure out what you actually mean. Yeah. So that's why it's, you know, important. I don't think they're two opposite ideas. I think law is very precise in trying to find out, yes, what you've said, but also what the intention was. So
I think also like it's fascinating to me because it kind of shows how language will shape reality. I think law more than anything proves that, and also poetry. I think poetry kind of shapes our soul.
Let's go.
Let's go. Poetry shapes our soul, but like law shapes the fabric of our society, as I guess.
Get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Copyright. But yeah, like the law shapes, or like the language we use in law shapes the fabric of our society, because it shows that like language has a place where it's important. And I think the reason why, if you think about how we developed as people, you know, more and more language became important to be like communicated, but also like, let's write this down, or like let's like codify it in a law, because we all need to follow what this means, you know. Talk to me about like that. Do you think it is a true statement that language shapes our society? Do you think it's more than that? Like, you know, do you think that's such too much of a simple idea? What do you think about that?